Hey everybody, welcome to the Fantasy Football Fallout. This is for wide receivers. If you're in a dynasty or a deep keeper, and when I say deep keeper, I mean leagues that keep generally their top, their starting lineup or thereabouts for season. If you're in one of these formats, these are moves you need to be thinking about making as you progress into the future. You know, I always get the one or two people on this video. It's like, oh, why are you saying this? Why don't I go after Michael Thomas? Look, if you can get Michael Thomas, great. Go do that, okay? That's not what this video is about. This video is about sneaky moves, moves that might be able to catch other owners sleeping. So let's look at some wide receivers that you might be able to acquire for pennies on the dollar to help you make that championship run in the next couple of years, okay? First of all, I'm going to give you some fat chance guys, some young guys. DJ Chark in Jacksonville. You got A.J. Brown, obviously, in Tennessee with all that hype that they had with Ryan Tannehill. Darius Slayton for the New York Giants. Slayton you might be able to grab because he didn't put up great season-long numbers. So if people weren't really kind of paying attention in the second half of the season and you look at that in a vacuum and you say, oh, Darius, he only scored that many points in 2019, then maybe you'd be able to pry him away from somebody. But if anybody's really paying attention, you're probably not going to be able to get. If he was on my keeper team, I can't imagine me getting an offer for him that I would trade. At that point, once you're battling in those dynasty trades, move for move, it's like, come on, man, what are you actually going to give me of value that can give me the top line potential? Unlikely candidates here: DK Metcalf and Michael Gallup. Now, Michael Gallup, I am more high on because I like McCarthy going into Dallas. I almost said Green Bay. And I think Amari Cooper, I don't know, it hasn't played out yet, but he might not be with the Cowboys next season. I'm betting he won't be. So I'm thinking that Dallas is going to kind of revamp this wide receiver unit, and I think Michael Gallup will be one of the guys, basically the guy drawing the most targets. That's just my gut. I don't really have any analysis behind that at this point. Like I said, this is all kind of a gut play. DK Metcalf, I think he's going to get better and better. He's already, people are saying, running better routes. He's more refined. People are saying he was kind of raw coming to the league. Well, he has got a lot of potential, and it looks like he's fulfilling that potential. He's working towards it, so that's a great sign. So I like those guys, but again, unlikely. So that brings me to 13 guys. Yes, 13. Wide receiver is a deep position here. 13 guys I think you should be looking at, to make your team. And I'm looking at guys that could potentially eventually ascend into a starting role in your wide receiver team, but basically be guys that you can play flex week to week. All of these people are going to have some warts on them. They're not going to be perfect candidates. So again, this is about making moves to try to improve your team incrementally over the years, and that's what dynasties and deep keepers are all about. So number 13 on my list, Curtis Samuel of the Carolina Panthers. Interesting one for me. Now, if it was my league, I probably would not try to get him, but if he was on my keeper or my dynasty league, I'd be pretty happy that I had him. With the new coaching staff coming in Carolina, I think there's going to be less volume of work. You just have to look at kind of the history and how they devote resources, right? Christian McCaffrey was such a huge portion of this offense just from a percentage and a workload standpoint for a coaching staff that was trying to keep their job year over year. Now with a new coaching staff, not to say that Christian McCaffrey does not have the ability. Certainly, I think he's an MVP caliber, future Hall of Fame caliber talent, okay? But what I think is likely to happen in Carolina is he gets less volume because they're looking at this for the long haul, the next 5 to 10 years. That's what the coaching staff is thinking at this point, whereas Rivera and his coaching staff was like, we got to win. So I think, as that workload naturally moves away, they're going to try to find other guys to give the ball to in the ground game, which I think they'll get another, pure running back for that. And then also, Curtis Samuel, they'll be giving him more, end arounds and those kinds of things, but also involving him more in the passing game as well. DJ Moore I love, but I just don't think given the season he's put up last year, how young he is, I don't think he's likely to be, you're going to be able to pry him away for good value. But Curtis Samuel is a guy that could ascend into that weekly flex start role. And hey, if somebody's going to give him up for a low draft pick or something like that, I think he's worth looking at. Number 12 on my list. Now, this is a little bit of a cheat, but I have B.C. Johnson and Stefon Diggs for Minnesota. Now, I know Stefon Diggs is going to cost a lot, so let me just take care of this quickly. Stefon Diggs, he didn't wow me last year, but he plays better when Adam Thielen is in the lineup. On top of that, Minnesota ran so much last year. Kubiak is going to be taking over this team, and yes, Kubiak is definitely going to be a run-first, run to set up the pass type coordinator, but I do think the play call distribution will slant a little bit more towards pass. With Thielen back, with that, that Kubiak in his system, these deep ends, these deep crosses, deep posts, everything that we saw with San Francisco, Minnesota is going to be able to pull off next year as well. I like the system for Diggs. and I think owners are generally down on him. Add to that, he's probably not, maybe not this season because Minnesota said that they'll keep him. But in the next year or so, he's going to find himself possibly in a New England or possibly in one of these other organizations that are trying to win. Can you imagine if he were playing opposite, say, Michael Thomas in New Orleans or opposite Devontae Adams in Green Bay? Is that realistic? Who knows? It's all conjecture. But again, I think Stefon Diggs has value two ways. One, because Thielen will be back and he'll get more volume, and then two, he could be in another environment soon. Now, BC Johnson, I think he's going to be operating as maybe the third targeted player. But again, if Stefon Diggs somehow gets traded, he's going to ascend into that secondary role. That's going to be fantastic. So, it's buyer beware. I wouldn't give up too much for him because I'm assuming that Diggs will be back next year. But he showed me a good amount last year when Diggs and Thielen, they were kind of, will they, won't they play, those kinds of things. And BC Johnson stepped up, so I like them. And by the way, I am ignoring Chad Beebe on purpose. I just don't love his productivity. I don't think he's the type of player that's going to fit in this scheme, just my opinion. Number 11, Mike Williams. Now, he's an interesting guy because he didn't score well. It was pretty frustrating. I kept waiting for him to break out and get like 2 or 3 touchdowns in a game. Just never really happened. But his targets and his yardage, they were all fine. So what I think is going to end up happening with Mike Williams is, he's just going to get more red zone opportunities. So I like him, and I think you'll be able to get him for pennies on the dollar as well. Number 10 on my list, interesting name here because everybody's talking about Emmanuel Sanders. Is he going to come back to San Francisco? Is he going to be playing somewhere else? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But coming into the 2019 season, yes, I like Deebo Samuel just like the rest of the world did. But I also found Jalen Hurd quite interesting. I thought he was going to be like that Pierre Garçon type guy in this offense, or maybe a Rod Smith type guy if you want to go way back into the Denver Broncos days. I like Jalen Hurd running those deep ends. This possession receiver is a big dude. He can run. I like him and his potential quite a bit, but it's potential, right? So he comes with some risk for sure, but if an owner is snoozing, if they're not really thinking that much, and we saw San Francisco win and do well without him, you might be able to get him for really, really, really low cost. He's somebody, if I was just keeping my entire roster year over year, I would love to have Jalen Hurd on my team. All right, number 9 on my list is Russel Gage of Atlanta. Once the Atlanta Falcons traded Mohamed Sanu to New England, Russel Gage started getting more and more and more targets in Atlanta. They kept the coaching staff year over year. Now, I worry a little bit that the Coach Quinn, Dirk Cutter, they could all be cut loose next year. It could happen if Atlanta can't get it done this year. That coaching staff is going to go. But I do like Russel Gage, especially in 2020 coming up. I think he'll be a nice guy. He's certainly got a guy that you can draft pretty late in your leagues because people will be snoozing on him. But again, if you have owners that weren't really paying attention after the Sanu trade, his overall stats don't lie you, but his late, basically second half stats were pretty solid, so I like him. Number 8 on my list, Hunter Renfro, another guy people probably aren't paying too much of attention to. Oakland, I ended up, by happenstance, watching a lot of Oakland games last year. Although they're Las Vegas now, that's going to take me a while to compute. I like how he's going to be used in the system. I really thought he was just starting to hit his stride, and then he got injured. As he gets healthy next year, and if Oakland can add another threat in the passing game, another receiver, things are going to be open for him over the middle of the field all day. I think Carr will take it. He likes his outlets. I think that Hunter Renfro his ceiling could definitely be around a Julian Edelman, a PPR nightmare for your opposition, a great player for you to have on your team. I think he's somebody you need to be targeting. I would certainly be targeting him if it were me. Number 7 on my list, John Ross and Auden Tate. In fact, let me, in the middle of this video, edit that. I'm moving Hunter Renfro to 7. But John Ross and Auden Tate, I would pick either or. It's kind of pick your poison. I guess Auden Tate is the higher, I would say the higher level of the guy, but you might, it's arguable, right? I'm kind of hemming and hawing over it as I speak right now. Either way, I think Cincinnati drafts Burrow, or at least another quarterback. Who knows how the rest of these offseason is going to shake out, but I think it'll be Burrow. I think Burrow will play there, and I think all this entire passing attack is going to get better. Tyler Boyd's going to do better, and I think Ross and Auden Tate will do better as well. And Zach Taylor, I think, wants to pass more than he wants to run, as we saw early in the season with Joe Mixon, so I like these guys. Number 6 on my list, Will Fuller, the perpetually injured Will Will Fuller. When he plays, he's fantastic. When he plays, he might not get you touchdowns every week, but he gets you a lot of yards. Maybe not a ton of catches, but again, a lot of yards when he plays. Deshaun Watson loves taking deep shots to him. He's a difference maker on this team. The reason why I have a lot of younger guys here, as you'll notice, I like him because Will Fuller owners are probably tired of it. They've had it. So I think you could probably pry him away for, again, pennies on the dollar. That's what this is all about. Number 5 on my list, Preston Williams. Yeah, I know he's coming off a season-ending injury, but he was looking so good. New offense, coming into Miami with Chan Gailey. Chan Gailey will throw the ball. He'll use whatever weapons are at his disposal. I think Preston Williams showed a lot of potential, and given his injury, you might be able to get him at an inexpensive rate. Number 4 on my list, Jameson Crowder of the New York Jets. Why do I like him? Well, he's playing in a system that likes slot receivers. This is the same system that sprung Jarvis Landry in Miami. Now, is Jameson Crowder as good now as Jarvis Landry was back then? I don't think so, but he's going to get ample opportunity. Don't look and don't be fooled so much by the season-long stats. Sam Darnold had the kissing disease. He had mono, missed a lot of games. The first 6 games of the Jets season. I know Darnold didn't miss that much, but I mean, that first 6 games, just throw those out. When what you're left with is Jameson Crowder, outside of Le'Veon Bell, was probably the most stable force out of all the skill players. And you can make the argument that he was the stable force. There are a couple of New York Jets wide receivers that are going to be free agents. Add that all into the mix. Jameson Crowder is going to be back. It's another year with hopefully for the Jets, healthy Sam Darnold. Maybe they make those offensive lines a little bit stronger. Maybe they add other weapons. Either way, I like Jameson Crowder moving forward. And because he doesn't come with a lot of cachet, not a lot of people think of him as a really good fantasy player, you'll be able to get him, I think, on the cheap. Number 3 on my list. This is, again, pick your poison here. Demarcus Robinson or McCole Hardman. If it's me, my preference is Hardman. I like him better. He's just faster. But I think it's likely, if not this season, soon enough, that Sammy Watkins is going to be an afterthought in this offense, or potentially not even on the team, right? So I like DeMarcus Robinson, McCole Hardman, any receiver, especially a secondary receiver, or I guess if you include Travis Kelce, it'd probably be the 3rd receiving option on this team, this Kansas City Chiefs team. Take them. They're that good, and I think Hardman. He just has higher potential, and he's so fast, and he returns kicks. I like his potential a little bit more, but I would take and be happy with either one. Number 2 on my list, Marquise Brown. The one game, maybe 2 games that he was really healthy, you could see he was behind the defenses all game. He's got Lamar Jackson throwing him the ball. Lamar Jackson, as he gets more accurate and better as an NFL quarterback, these deep opportunities are going to get better. Baltimore, mind you, what ended up happening is defenses started crashing up later in the season. And when they started crashing up, they saw that because Baltimore was basically running a 3 tight end offense, right? So they're running. They had Lamar Jackson running. Ingram and Edwards were doing their thing. They have Justice Hill, yes. But basically, their running attack was so strong. And then Mark Andrews, you got Boyle, Hayden Hurst. Everybody was kind of coming up to attack that front 7. And then double covering Marquise Brown deep, just to try to mitigate that risk, right? And that's what we saw in the playoffs as well. Well, keep in mind, Marquise Brown was banged up for basically the last 3 quarters of the season. He just wasn't right healthy. He's fast. He can get behind teams. And then as Baltimore goes through this draft and the offseason acquisition period, they're probably going to add another receiver that can separate deep. And that's going to add another dimension. And as they do, it's going to open more things up for Marquise Brown. I like him moving forward. He's one of my favorite players, one of my favorite pickups last year. Again, just circumstances and injury. He never really got his potential. So that's why I think you can get him on the cheap. And number 1 on my list, and this is another pick'em for me, Pittsburgh wide receivers here, Deante Johnson and James Washington. Now, I think Juju Smith-Schuster, you might be able to grab him too because people might have seen, Antonio Brown wasn't there last year. Look how bad his numbers were. Well, keep in mind who he had throwing him the ball. You had Mason Rudolph, and I can't even remember the other guy's name. Just garbage, okay? If you look at the defense, this team the defense for Pittsburgh got off the field a lot, right? They got off the field. It was impossible to move the ball on them. If they had an adequate quarterback, they would have made the playoffs last year. And this year, assuming the NFL goes to that 7 playoff team format, they'll probably make the playoffs this year. But I like with Roethlisberger, he's now cleared to throw. He's going to be back. If you look at every year of Roethlisberger in the last 5 to 10 years, he throws and involves all the wide receivers. I think both of these guys, James Washington and Deante Johnson, will have value. But if I had to pick, it's Deante Johnson. I liked him so much Seriously, I put my money where my mouth is. I liked them so much, I went on eBay and I don't even buy trading cards. I bought a bunch of trading card lots because they're trading for so little at this point. I think I got like 10 rookie cards, including like some special cards and all that. I got like 10 of them for like $6. So go invest in Deante Johnson. I love him. I think he's going to clear 1,000 yards. Bold prediction here on the spot. I'll say 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns in his second year, his first full year with Ben Roethlisberger. I'm going to ride Deante Johnson for as long as Roethlisberger's in the NFL. Yes, I'm concerned if Roethlisberger goes down, that will hurt Deante Johnson's value. But as it stands, I'm going to assume that Roethlisberger will play. I'm going to assume Deante Johnson is going to take another step forward. And keep in mind, even with these bad quarterbacks last year, and I'll call them bad quarterbacks last year, these guys were still weekly stream plays depending on matchup. Imagine if they have Ben Roethlisberger throwing the ball 650 times. Yes, that's a real stat. 675 in 2018, if I remember correctly. Imagine that. Over 120 targets for both of these guys. It's possible, okay? It's possible. So I like these Pittsburgh wide receivers to rebound in a big way. I like Pittsburgh to rebound in a big way, and I think you guys can get either one of these guys. Again, Johnson's my pick, but I wouldn't begrudge you either one of these guys. I think it would be a fantastic move for your organization. Just don't pay too much. Remember, it's all about value this time of the year. So there you go. There are my top, 13 with a couple of unlikelies and fat chances for you at the wide receiver position. We will be updating this list throughout the offseason, so please subscribe to this channel. Please like this video. If you think I'm missing anybody, please comment. I'd love to hear from you, and we'll catch you on another video soon. Thanks, everyone.